everybody, and welcome to Collider Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is the daily show where we give you all of the latest news from the world of movies, plus some insight into what it all means. Joining us, as always, is John Campea.
Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, coming to you from right here at the Collider Video Studios here in Burbank, California, and football's back! Yeah.
Also, here's Kristian Harloff.
I loved your turn on Bachelor in Paradise. What? I watch Bachelor in Paradise? No, my wife does. Don't judge me.
Lies. Also, here's Mark Ellis.
The Redskins are also in football. Very excited about that.
What's going on?
Yeah, there's rumors.
The Redskins do football.
Director Doug Liman and actor Tom Cruise have already worked together on the film Edge of Tomorrow and the upcoming film Mina, and now the two are planning their next project together. According to a report in Variety, Liman and Cruise will next work on a sci-fi film called Luna Park. The story for Luna Park is set to revolve around a group of renegade employees who take a trip to the moon to steal an energy source. Liman has been trying to get the project off the ground since 2011 when he had Chris Evans and Andrew Garfield attached in the lead roles. But the film was pulled by the financing partners at last minute. John, what do you think of the sounds of Luna Park?
I think it sounds great, as a matter of fact. And actually, after watching what these guys did together in Edge of Tomorrow, which, you know, was such a fun surprise of a movie, and I love the sounds of this Mina movie they're doing with Domhnall Gleeson, Jesse Plemons, I believe is his last name, where Tom Cruise basically plays like an airline pilot who becomes a drug smuggler and then starts working for the feds. That sounds fascinating. And just the premise of this movie, even if you take, you know, the director's name and Tom Cruise's name out of the picture, this still sounds like an interesting project to me. If you just compound it with the fact that this is the same team that gave us Edge of Tomorrow, sounds good to me. I'm in.
Yeah, Luna Park sounds like a place where high school kids go to make out, and it's also a delicious restaurant in Los Angeles, and it could be a really cool movie, too. From the sounds of this, I like that we're going to the moon. I like that we're not going to somewhere crazy, because we already have The Martian coming out. The moon is something that we can actually wrap our heads around a little bit. It's been done before, allegedly, a few times by Earthlings. Going to the moon and then actually stealing energy from the moon and coming back here. It's such a neat premise. It's almost like I'm wondering, are we doing that for good, or are these renegades, are they stealing the energy for good? Is it for bad? Is it for their own ill-gotten scheme? I'm excited to learn more about this, and with Tom Cruise and Liman involved, yeah, I'm totally on board.
Now, if they call this lunar energy, if they call them energon cubes, I smell a crossover coming. Anyway.
I love it. I mean, we've said this many times on the show that this town is a what have you done for me lately? These guys have done great things for us lately.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is a beast, man. He is one of those. It is so hard. What people don't realize, it is so hard for a movie star, an actor, actress to sustain for so long and be like, you only have a shelf life of so many years. He continues to not only survive, but to get us to play. Well, you understand why he's so great. Look at what he just did with Edge of Tomorrow and then Mission Impossible again. You know though, when you go to a Tom Cruise movie now, that he's giving you quality content. He's not, at least, and even with Oblivion, which I'm not a fan of, they tried. It wasn't, but they tried. And it's a beautiful looking movie, and some people enjoyed the movie. It clearly wasn't just like, oh, this guy's not even trying to make movies and phoning it in. You don't say that about Tom Cruise, that he's ever phoning it in. In this premise, he likes sci-fi.
Has some success with
success with it, for sure. And I want to see what he's going to do with this premise. It sounds great. I love Doug Liman. I love them working together. They collaborate well together. So why wouldn't you want to see this movie?
You know, it's funny that you bring up the longevity of Tom Cruise, because I still think you cannot undersell this one point. You know, a lot of people forget that there was a good period of time when it looked like the shelf life of Tom Cruise had come to an end. He wasn't, you know, all that popular with the fans anymore. There was that stuff with his Steven Spielberg film War of the Worlds, where they felt it underperformed because of Tom Cruise and all that kind of stuff.
And it's hard to come back from that stuff.
It is almost impossible to come back from that. And it is one of the most genius strokes of whether it was his agent or his managers or himself that did it. Him being in Tropic Thunder and playing that character, you can't undersell this. That changed everything. That overnight changed the perception of Tom Cruise. Everybody wanted to embrace Tom Cruise again. It was a stroke of genius that he did that. And now we are reaping the benefits of that today, because now we're still getting all these great movies he keeps cranking out, which is really great.
That's right. And who did he borrow money from when he needed money? Like 10 years ago, when his production company, they parted ways and he needed funding, Dan Snyder, the owner of the Redskins.
Really?
The one good thing that Dan Snyder's done in his entire reign as the head of the Redskins. Yeah.
You mean besides drafting the best quarterback in football, right?
He's going to have another chance at some point this season.
All right.
Mr. Glass is calling. Sorry.
What's next?
Wow.
UFC champion Ronda Rousey has apparently just landed the lead role made famous by Patrick Swayze in an upcoming remake of Roadhouse. Variety reports she'll play the bouncer with a keen intellect who is hired to clean up a rough Texas bar. No mention is made if the character's name will remain Dalton or be changed. Rousey will next be seen in the 2016 Peter Berg film Mile 22 with Mark Wahlberg. Kristian, are you up for Ronda Rousey filling Patrick Swayze's shoes for a Roadhouse remake?
This is such a weird question. Just because I can see when the notes are being made, like, how can anyone be up for this because of her acting? I mean, her acting's horrendous, but I will tell you this. You have to capitalize. If you're Ronda Rousey, you capitalize on these offers. You capitalize on everything that you can. And I will say that if any role is perfect for her to do right now, it's a remake of Roadhouse. I could see, I mean, it's going to be painful to watch her in a lead for an hour and 40 minutes. It's going to be tough. The woman can't act. Some people have it, some people don't. She doesn't. But if they just focus on her just kicking the crap out of everybody for just an hour and 40 minutes, and they just have her say, sure, great, let's go to the lake. That's all I need. And then rip somebody's throat out. That's fine. Then I'm on board for this. Because if you're going to give me any movie, because everyone's going to, every time you get a question, are you excited about Ronda Rousey acting? Everyone here is going to be like, no, she can't act. But if there's one property, then yeah, sure. But I don't know.
I have to disagree with you. Like, I believe there are properties out there. Look, I wish they would handle Ronda Rousey a little bit smarter. I wish they would just give her 3 or 4 years of taking small supporting roles, learn a bit, instead of saying, hey, she's a big name right now, let's put her in lead roles and stuff like that. I agree, there may be a movie out there that you could get away with that. Maybe a female version of Conan. I mean, what was it, like an hour and something minutes before Arnold Schwarzenegger? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Red Sonja, but like Schwarzenegger didn't say his first line in Conan until like well into the film and stuff like that. But Roadhouse, I'm telling you, Roadhouse is awesome.
It's awesome.
It's not just a good movie, it's an awesome movie. And part of what makes it awesome was that Patrick Swayze didn't just do the action great, he gave us a great character. I mean, he was able to sell us on the smoothness of the character. Be nice until it's time to not be nice. Yeah. You know, you got to be able to sell that character that way. Sam Elliott, how great was Sam Elliott in that movie too, right? He was so good in that movie. And because of that, I kind of feel like, no, this is not the movie you give to somebody like Ronda Rousey. I'm a massive Ronda Rousey fan. And I am certainly not saying that she does not, possess the capability down the line to develop some acting chops and grow with the right training and experience. I'm not saying she couldn't be a legitimate or at least serviceable actress at some point. Maybe it might be a long shot, but I'm not saying she can't do that. But she ain't, come on, we all agree. Right now, she ain't that. And to give her Roadhouse, this actually makes me a little mad. I'm not mad that they're remaking Roadhouse.
That's nostalgia, though. That's a nostalgia thing, too.
Well, part of it is nostalgia, but that's what they're trying to capitalize on for doing a Roadhouse. It is nostalgia, and this is nostalgia that's pissing me off here. I don't know, Mark, what do you think?
I think Sam Elliott, get that mustache in shape, because you're going to have to do the heavy lifting in the Roadhouse reboot. I hope they bring him back. I personally am very offended by this. However, I get it on all facets. I understand why she would want to do it. I understand why
no, I don't blame her at all.
But a studio, too, because Roadhouse is such a known, celebrated property. It's on TNT every weekend. People are still aware of what Roadhouse is. It's this fun action movie that I believe won 17 Oscars, which is still a record. You need to, it's one of the things like Point Break, where yes, it's in the culture, so it's going to make money. With Ronda Rousey being the star that she is in that movie, she not only is a great fighter, but she just has that look of a bouncer. you actually
absolutely.
believe her as a bouncer until she opens her mouth, which I don't know if she's going to be better or worse than she's been in movies so far, like The Expendables or Furious 7 or something like that. But, I mean, it hasn't been pretty thus far. She can get better. I think that the one movie that I would buy her in is the story that she's doing, the biopic. It makes too much sense on all levels for this movie to not happen, including a curious audience standpoint. I love the first Roadhouse. I'm interested. I'm not happy about it, but I will pay to see this movie. I'm sorry. I'm going to see it.
And the thing that you said as far as like give her time to act and maybe give it sort of in 3-4 years. The problem is, look at someone like Chuck Liddell. Okay, now Chuck Liddell, when he was fighting, he was really the transfer over to when the UFC really started to pop. And Chuck Liddell was like the first mainstream superstar. They put him in Entourage. They were going to put him in all this stuff. And then when they really started to promote him and promote his big fight against Rampage, he lost. And so, like, the problem is that you have to capitalize on fighters. Now, it doesn't look like anybody right now is even going to come close to beating Ronda Rousey. But fighters are another one, talking about shelf life. They're so long before their bodies give out on them. And what happens if you start promoting? You're waiting 2, 3, 4 years for it, and then the comet starts to go down, and she loses a fight. Her stock drops. Right now, she is Mike Tyson in 1987. So you capitalize on her now while you can. And I just think that, I know with Roadhouse, I get it, I understand, but going off what Mark says though too, it's the one that makes sense for her, I think, right now. And God bless everybody.
All right, folks, we've reached that part of the show for buy or sell. Here's how this works. In front of her, Ashley's got a few other items in the world of movie news. She's going to run them down, and those of us at the table are simply going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So, Ashley, what do we got?
The two Bridget Jones movies, which started in 2001 with Bridget Jones' Diary, have made over $540 million at the worldwide box office and is preparing to return to the big screen again. According to a report in Deadline, Grey's Anatomy star Patrick Dempsey is now in final negotiations to appear in the third film titled Bridget Jones Baby, which sees Renee Zellweger reprising the title role along with Colin Firth as love interest Mark Darcy. Actor Hugh Grant, who appeared in the first two films, is not returning for the third. Shooting on the film is set to begin within the month. Mark, buy or sell Patrick Dempsey and Bridget Jones Baby?
Well, as this panel's authority on all things Bridget Jones, yes, I could. Yeah, I'll buy Patrick Dempsey in this movie for sure. It's adding another level of talent and another draw to a movie that's already built in property that people love. The first two movies did very well. They have their audience, their fan base, and Patrick Dempsey is a guy who fits perfectly in that fan base from his days on Grey's Anatomy. So yeah, it makes total sense from that standpoint. The fact that they're making another one of these movies, there's some circumstances that I'm not sure how they're going to address and that we were talking about right before we went to air. But Bridget Jones's Baby, yeah, it makes sense. It's going to be later. She's at a different point in her life. So I could be up for this, sure.
I've actually been a big Patrick Dempsey fan ever since he was in Can't Buy Me Love.
Of course, Ronald Miller.
Yeah, I loved that movie, and when his career was slow before Grey's Anatomy, I always used to get excited when we see him pop it. What was that one with Dustin Hoffman and Renee Zellweger about the outbreak? It might have actually just been called Outbreak. I thought he was really good, and that was a small role, but I really liked this. And years ago, when people first started talking about a Doctor Strange movie, I really firmly believe that he would have made a great Doctor Strange. Love who we got, totally love who we got, but I always thought he'd be good. The changes that Mark is alluding to, but so delicately doesn't actually want to say.
I just danced over with a little feather.
It's an interesting thing to bring up. I'm not saying anything positive or negative. Renee Zellweger doesn't look like Bridget Jones anymore. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic.
She doesn't look like Renee Zellweger anymore.
Okay. Then now you went further than I was going to say. Yeah, you're right.
I wanted you to lead off the hit, but yeah, I'll bring it home.
Let's just say that Ray didn't take that picture from yesterday.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how the audience responds when her appearances change so much at this point. Again, not saying anything negative or positive about it. It's just that it's an interesting dynamic change. So it's going to be see how well that goes. But just as far as talking about Dempsey in it, I think this is a great addition. I think he would fit very well into this franchise. So for me, it's a buy.
Yeah, if we're buying the casting, absolutely a buy. Patrick Dempsey, like you said, anytime you see him pop up, he adds something to it. I hope that he's playing, because in the first one they had like the kind of the good guy and then the douchey guy. I hope he's playing the good guy, because we've seen him play the jerk a few times, and I think he plays better as the good guy. I think as the romantic lead, and I could see them having.
That's right. He was the bad guy in that one Transformers movie. Oh my God, I totally forgot about that. That was horrible.
Yeah, and we've seen him do it, and I think that to see him in the romantic lead, that's what he does well, and so he always adds that. As far as the third one, I don't know why anyone needs a third one. I just don't. Yeah, you're right. They were popular years ago, but no one's seen Renee Zellweger in a long time. It seems like it's not like Stallone coming back and doing Rocky 6, you know, or Arnold come back and do another Terminator movie. This is a movie that was okay, did fine. So I don't know how.
No, but it also caught fire. Like I think it's a cult hit too, and it's got it's got a huge demographic. It's the early 2000s.
Look at Entourage. Entourage was 2007. This show, and then it came out didn't do well at all. What was the other one that just came out recently? And
but that's a TV show transitioning into a movie that people weren't sure they ever wanted to see in the first place. Like Bridget Jones, I think has a huge fan base. My question is, wasn't Colin Firth? Who is he in the movie? Is he not with Bridget Jones? Is he just hanging out with her?
Oh yeah. He was the good guy.
Yeah, so I think you'll probably see Patrick Dempsey come in and be like the maybe the douchey younger guy that he's got to go against. So I'm not saying that personally it's going to appeal to my demographic, but I think there's totally an audience for this movie.
Yeah, I think it would be a mistake to underestimate the audience that the Bridget Jones movies had was a very faithful and very enthusiastic audience. And like we said, for the two movies made over $500 million worldwide combined. And I feel like that if Jurassic World had not been the hit that it was, like, wait a minute, we can go back to a property that's like over 10 years old, over 12 years old, and maybe recapture some of that magic. I know there's very little in common between Bridget Jones and Jurassic World. I understand that. But I think old properties that were completely beloved in their time to come back and visit. You brought up nostalgia earlier. I think this is something that can work, and I think people will be interested in seeing it. But maybe it's a train wreck.
I think Bridget Jones is like the Roadhouse for women, right? It's like that's their Roadhouse. Is they get together, like guys, we like to watch Roadhouse and watch Swayze rip somebody's throat out. They like to get together and watch Renee Zellweger pretend to be a British girl.
Ashley just gave you're an idiot face.
But you know what? That is such a ridiculous yet
was that the face she was making?
It looked like I get that face all the time.
She was doing her impression of Renee Zellweger through the ears. Thank you.
Touche.
All right, what's next?
Star of the TV show iZombie and the upcoming Damian Bradley James has joined the cast of the upcoming Underworld 5, according to a report in Deadline. James would be taking on the role of the film's villain opposite the returning Kate Beckinsale. The previous film, Underworld Awakening, was the most successful in the franchise, making just over $160 million worldwide. John Byers Bradley James joining Underworld 5.
Full disclosure, I haven't seen iZombie. I haven't watched a single episode of the show, and none of us have seen Damian yet, so I really don't have a lot of opinion on him right now, so I'll just give it the benefit of the doubt since I really don't know anything about him. But I'm going to sell it on the grander scale of why is there an Underworld 5? You know, it's brought up that, you know, the last one was the most successful of the franchise at $160 million. That was the most successful of the franchise. I believe so, yeah. And arguably it was the weakest out of all of them. And there have been some bad Underworld films. The first Underworld film is the reason why I get even more disappointed with all of them. The first Underworld film did not blow me away, but there was so much cool stuff there that even though I didn't love the first movie, I was excited about them doing more because they planted so many great seeds, had such a great mythology. It's like, there's all the ingredients here to make a great movie. Do another one. But they did another one. Not so good. They did another one, not so good. That one, Rise of the Lycans, with Michael Sheen, could have been really good because it had Rona Mitra in it as well. Rona Mitra. Wow. Anyway, so there was a lot of potential there for that one as well. Kind of failed again. Then it felt like the last one they did was like one last gasp to do something, and it was terrible. And so, look, I'll check it out because I'm a sucker for these kind of movies, obviously, so I'm going to be there. But overall, for the premise, I got to sell it.
Yeah, I'm a huge Kate Beckinsale fan, so I want to see her in something that's not Underworld. And I don't hate the Underworld franchise. I agree with you. There's a lot of potential in that universe, but it was way too... I felt like somebody walked into French 301, having never taken a class of French, watching the last movie because it was just so over my head what they were talking about. They just assume that you've seen all these other movies, and that shouldn't be the case. I buy this casting simply because it's somebody that I haven't heard of, which means it probably didn't cost that much money to get into the film. And whereas it would have excited me, maybe expanded the universe to get somebody who's more of a name, I understand this play for Underworld where we're going to make these movies. They're not going to cost a lot of money to make. We're not going to blow our budget on talent. We're going to get people who may be good, but they're not exactly marquee names. We're going to use the franchise name Underworld to sell these movies as opposed to getting some huge star to be in it.
I'll buy the kid joining it because I always kind of root for people that I don't know who he is, have no idea. So if this is a stepping stone and a platform for him, and then even if the movie's terrible, and you say, but that kid was good, and it helps him get roles,
It's a good opportunity.
Yeah, then I'll buy it for him because it's a spotlight for a guy to shine. I don't care about this movie at all. Is Len Wiseman directing this too?
I don't know.
If he is, I care even less about it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see it because I don't care about the mythology. But you can't sell an opportunity. If the guy, I could see it, and then because I saw this movie and he was bad in it, then I know next time I am asked to buy or sell, he's going to be in it. I'm going to sell it. But I hope it's the opposite, and I hope he's good in it.
That brings up a question. What happened to Kate Beckinsale? Because Kate Beckinsale, I honestly believe, she's a world-class actress. Mm-hmm. She's great. She's more than just a vampire in tight leather. And oh my God, I love her as a vampire in really tight leather. Don't get me wrong. But I just feel like she was on the cusp of being a perennial Oscar contender. Every year she was going to be in something. She has all the talent in the world. She's incredibly beautiful. She has great chemistry with her co-stars, generally speaking. I just don't know why she never broke through and became that top 2 or 3 A-list actresses in the business.
Decisions.
Yeah.
Decisions. Look at the movies she's made, and it goes back to the Tom Cruise conversation before. When you make all these choices in these movies, like Whiteout, and the Total Recall remake, all these movies, which I didn't mind her in. I thought she was good in it, but the movie didn't do well. So when you underperform, it's hard, and I think it's harder for an actress. So when you keep doing these movies, and it goes back into what's happening with Zac Efron now too,
right?
Is that her choices haven't been as bad as his, but the choice and there's so many new up and coming actresses too. It's competitive out there. It's just dog eat dog, man. It's tough.
And that's the problem. Like, you can't go back to a property, even a good movie like Serendipity. You can't necessarily go back to that world. Whereas Renee Zellweger has a Bridget Jones in her, so she can go back to that franchise.
Underworld is her Bridget Jones.
Right. And it's got a much more limited fan base than I think either Bridget Jones or Roadhouse has.
We are your vampires. Okay, what's next?
In an earlier report in Entertainment Weekly, it was said that Star Wars Episode VII would be heading back to Ireland later this month to do some reshoots. However, that report has now been updated as Lucasfilm has confirmed that while they are indeed heading to Ireland to do some shooting this month, it isn't for Episode VII. It's actually for Episode VIII. Episode VIII is being directed by Looper Helmer Rian Johnson and will feature Academy Award winner Benicio del Toro as one of the film's villains. Christian, buy or sell this news of Star Wars Episode VIII beginning shooting later this month?
I buy it. It makes sense. And we discussed this on Jedi Council last week, I believe, as far as, because there was rumors, like we said, it could be 7, it could be 8, but it makes sense that it's 8. We have our theories of what that island is. If you want to see more of those theories, you can check out Jedi Council. I'm sure we'll be talking about that a little later today as well, too. But as far as buying it because Episode 8 starts shooting, great, because that means that they're going to have enough time to get to that May 2017 release date is what we're aiming at here. So, and it also shows the continuation of a location that JJ used. It shows that they're using, this is going to be a prominent location, that it's going to have meaning. And apparently in one of the novels that just came out recently, one of these younger adult novels, they reference this island as well too for Luke. So it's becoming a character almost. Like how many times we've mentioned this property on Jedi, and now it's coming out here. So I'm glad, because it means that we're probably going to get a trailer for Episode 8. Or I'm telling you, we're probably going to get a trailer for Episode 8 around the time Rogue One comes out. In about a year from now.
I thought you were going to say Christmas.
I think you'd have a trailer before Rogue One comes out, because Rogue One is coming out Christmas, and then this movie comes out 6 months. So it might be another trailer.
Right, in May, probably, maybe even May of next year, you might get a trailer. It's true.
It's possible for a little scissor thing, but I'll tell you what, this is a huge buy for me for totally the wrong reasons, though. It is a huge buy for me. Why? Because if you're already shooting Episode 8, that makes Episode 7 so much more real.
Yeah.
And we just, what was it? Was it yesterday or the day before that we hit the 100 days till The Force Awakens, right? Even then, to me, it still feels so theoretical. even with all those Force Awakens toys now that I have in my office and all that kind of stuff, it still feels so theoretical. There's something really great. I use that term every once in a while, the tangibilization of it. Hearing that episode 8 is shooting, that just makes episode 7 feel so much closer and so much nearer. So I get excited for that. So for totally the wrong reasons, I buy it.
It's a huge buy across the board, and I echo a lot of Kristian's sentiments when he said that it shows continuity within the story and the universe, but also meaningful because it's a very environmentally sensitive place, this Skellig Michael Island. So you can't just whirl up there and shoot whenever you feel like it. There's very certain points during the calendar year when you can shoot at Skellig Michael Island. So the fact that they're doing it this early shows me that they're not just saving it for pickup shots to show, oh yeah, and we've been here too, and now we're leaving this. This is going to play a prominent role in the trilogy, not just in The Force Awakens, but in all 3 of these films. We all have a feeling, a suspicion, it's where Luke Skywalker has been spending the majority of his time, at least the last decade, if not all of the time since Return of the Jedi. And it's got an old like Christian monastery type vibe in real life, so maybe that's a Jedi temple in the Star Wars universe. It's such an exciting location for me. So yeah, it's a huge buy that they're using stuff like this in the trilogy.
Now, one other thing to keep in mind too, and this is interesting, this will mark, once they start shooting this, the first time in history that 3 Star Wars films are going to be actively in production at once. You've got the post-production wrapping up on episode 7. Rogue One is already shooting right now, and episode 8 is going to be shooting. Never in the history of our world have we had 3 Star Wars films on the go at once. Exciting times. All right, folks. Well, listen, it's Thursday, which means it's time for us to talk about what is opening this week, brought to you by our good friends over at AMC Theatres. We got 3 films opening in wide release this week, so Ashley, tell us about them.
First up is 90 Minutes in Heaven, based on the book of the same name and starring Hayden Christensen and Kate Bosworth. The film tells the story of the true events of Don Piper, who died January 18, 1989, when a semi-tractor truck crushed his car. Declared dead by the first rescue workers to arrive on the scene, Don's body was lying under a tarp for the next 90 minutes. Don's soul, meanwhile, was experiencing love, joy, and life like he'd never known before. Don was in heaven. When another pastor's prayers helped bring Don back to life, he became a living miracle. Yet this is one miracle Don wished never happened. Heaven's bliss was replaced by excruciating pain and emotional turmoil. With the support and prayers of his beloved Eva, their 3 kids, and his friends near and far, Don clings to his faith in God and fights to regain a semblance of his previous life. Next up is the new thriller, The Perfect Guy. With a fulfilling career and loving relationship, lobbyist Leah Vaughn, played by Sanaa Lathan, seems to have it all. Things come crashing down when Dave, her long-term boyfriend, questions her future plans for marriage and family. The resulting breakup leaves Leah heartbroken until she meets the charming and handsome Carter Duncan, played by Michael Ealy. Soon, the budding romance turns dangerous as Carter reveals his volatile nature, forcing Leah to turn the tables on the man she thought was Mr. Right. Finally is the new M. Night Shyamalan horror film, The Visit. Becca and younger brother Tyler say goodbye to their mother as they board a train and head deep into Pennsylvania farm country to meet their maternal grandparents for the first time. Welcomed by Nana and Pop Pop, all seems well until the siblings start to notice increasingly strange behavior from the seemingly charming couple. Once the children discover a shocking secret, they begin to wonder if they'll ever make it home. Mark, which of these films are you looking forward to the most?
Well, just by default, The Visit. I mean, I think The Perfect Guy looks like a guilty pleasure kind of movie. The Heaven movie, what's it called? That one. Yeah, I mean, as much as I love Star Wars, I'm not a huge Hayden Christensen fan. That story does sound intriguing to me, though, because usually when you have a I Came Back from the Dead movie, it's like, oh, yeah, man, I was in heaven, it was awesome, now I'm back on Earth and it's great. This guy wasn't that thrilled that he had been brought back because of all the stuff he had to endure in rehab. He was actually enjoying heaven, and that's something I can get on board with. It's like, if I go to heaven, I don't want to come back down to Earth. I might not be invited
Redskins
back
fan.
in 5
There
minutes.
is no such thing.
There is heaven, and it's going to be this season when we go 16-0.
When the season's
in the
over.
regular season.
It's
usually March and April is when we win the Super Bowl. But yeah, so it's obviously The Visit because I'm such a huge, you hesitate to say fan of M. Night Shyamalan because I love his first 3 movies so much and I was very let down by every film since then, but I think that there is still talent in there. I root for guys who were great once to come back and be great again. So I want to see Shyamalan do it, and I've seen The Visit, and I can tell you this is the best movie he's done since Before the Village, which again ain't saying much, but I was impressed with The Visit. I think y'all should check it out.
The one I'm looking forward to is The Visit because, you know, as much as we have joked about M. Night, because he's brought it on himself with terrible film after terrible film after terrible film, he was not a one-hit wonder. He put out several really good films. And I'm like you. I root for these guys who were great once to come back and be great again. We just talked about Tom Cruise earlier, right? We said that great comeback. I would like to see it again. And I have not seen The Visit yet. But this is the first movie from M. Night in a long time that I'm hearing people coming out and going, you know, that was pretty good. When's the last time we heard that? Over a decade? So that has me really intrigued. It's a small budget film under Blumhouse. Blumhouse seems to be able to do wonders with stuff like this. So I'm really curious to see it. Anyway, Kristian, what about you?
I would say The Visit as well too. And I know that some people, if you've seen the review, you're like, wait a minute, I've seen your review of The Visit. I've rethought of some things I still don't. I didn't like as much as Mark did too. I think that there's parts of it that are really silly.
Right.
But it is definitely his best since The Village for sure. But he goes back to basics, and it's a smaller film. And I think the problem with M. Night is when he started making these big budget movies, and he got lost in himself, and he got lost in the Time magazine on the next Spielberg thing.
Yeah.
He got lost in all that stuff. And this movie, I will say, regardless of what I thought of it overall, this is him being a filmmaker again and enjoying and he has fun making this movie. So if you are, and you root for the guy now, he's kind of come back, and like even you talking to him at Comic-Con, he's humble now, and it's like you root for him regardless. Again, regardless of what I thought about it. Mark loved it. A lot of people are also starting to love the movie. So great. I hope it does well. I agree with Mark. I think Perfect Guy could be more of a guilty pleasure movie. It seems like even it's what we thought The Gift was going to be, you know, in the vein of like Unlawful Entry and even those types of movies. That's probably where we're going with this one. Probably seen it before. It's probably cliched, but I like Michael Ealy, so it could be all right. But 90 Minutes in Heaven, and I think you said this beforehand, had it been a different actor doing this role, I'd probably be a little bit more interested. It reminds me of that Greg Kinnear movie about his son.
Heaven is for Real.
Heaven is for Real,
yeah.
which I enjoyed. It's always fascinating to me because, you know, what the hell is out there? Who knows? You know, and to see and to hear these real life experiences of what these people went through. But you also want a vessel to take you through that, and I don't think Hayden Christensen is the vessel to do it.
No, he ruined the trailer for me. He single-handedly ruined the trailer for me.
No emotion.
He's so wooden.
Yeah.
I
just hope for his sake that there's no sand in heaven, because sand is
I hate sand.
coarse and gets everywhere. But I mean,
It's holding me back.
the thing, and here's the thing too. I went and watched I found some video of the guy that movie's based on to see, well, maybe that's the way that guy really talks. That is not the way that guy talks. The guy talks like a regular human being. And Hayden Christensen was so wooden in that. One thing about
fair, Hayden Christensen had just seen Jupiter Ascending.
Well, okay, yes, we'll give him that. Well, as far as The Perfect Guy, though, the one thing I don't know, and maybe this is me feeling insecure about myself, whatever. Can I just say it is almost unfair how good looking Eli is? Michael Ealy, that guy is so good looking, it's just unfair. It's just not fair.
Well, let's not sell Morris Chestnut either. That is a good-looking man in his own right.
Morris Chestnut is absolutely a really good-looking dude, too. I'm just saying, whenever I see anything he's in, it just makes me a little bit mad that some people get so much and some of us get so little.
Well, I happen to think Santa Lathan's pretty hot, so...
Well, that's true, too. All right, folks, we reached that part of the show now for Mailbag. Listen, if you've got a topic or a question you'd like us to address on the show, you can email us anytime at collidervideo@gmail.com. So, Ashley, what is in our mailbag today?
Jared writes, I listen to you guys every day and need my fix, so never stop uploading videos. My question is, why on earth am I still waiting for the D23 trailers? I find myself searching if they released the Jungle Book trailer, as schmoes know, and John Campea said it stole the show. Also, the Civil War footage, I do not know why, but why wouldn't they do what Warner Brothers did with B versus S? To me, releasing the footage after they show it to D23 would not only satisfy the people at the event, mostly press, so they can see it again, and the people that were obviously not there.
There is a massive, massive difference between the trailer we got for Batman versus Superman at Comic-Con and the Jungle Book and Civil War and Doctor Strange, for that matter, stuff that they showed us at D23. The Batman versus Superman trailer was put together as a trailer that if Comic-Con was not happening, that trailer was going to get released. They just decided to release it at Comic-Con and then show it to the rest of the world. That was a thing that the studio and the filmmakers put together. This is our trailer. This is our package that we want to present to the world. This is the representation of our movie. And that trailer was coming out regardless of Comic-Con. Now at D23, what they showed us in terms of Civil War, and especially Jungle Book, and maybe especially Doctor Strange, that is footage they do not want to show the world. If D23 did not happen, they would never have put those packages together. But they thought, okay, just because we want something to show the people at D23, we will put this together. Like Jon Favreau, even there at the event at D23, said he didn't want to show anybody anything at this point, but he got talked into it, i.e. commanded. He got talked into putting something together for the audience at D23. Kevin Feige did the same thing with Civil War. It was not a trailer. What they showed us at D23, while it got us excited and everything, studios are very, very cautious and very careful about the image of their properties. And when they put something out to the world, they want it to be the package that they are ready for the world to see. What they showed us at D23 for both Jungle Book, Civil War, stuff like that, is not something that they would say, this is what we want the public's first impression of our movie to be. It ain't it. We'll show it to this small group, like 6,000, 7,000 people at D23, because they're here and this is a special occasion. But it's a universe difference between the Batman vs. Superman trailer and this footage we saw here. Anyway, you were in that theater with me. What are your impressions of this?
Well, you're right, but it's also a matter of marketing, strategy, and timing, and all that stuff. Because if you have a movie like Batman v Superman, which at the time from July was less than a year away when they showed it.
Yep.
Jungle Book is a long way away, so what you will see stuff especially from the Civil War stuff that they showed. You will probably see a lot of the stuff that we saw at D23 in the trailer that they show, because that movie is closer to being done. It comes out in what is it, April,
May,
or April, May, one of those two. It comes out fairly soon, so you're going to see a trailer for that, I would think, coming up. I don't know whether it be at the end of the year or the beginning of the year. You're going to see something along those lines. But with Jungle Book, you don't want to. What they both did, both of those trailers, it created buzz. Because you just sent in an email about the Jungle Book, which you probably wouldn't have had you not heard all the buzz and the people raving about it. They showed what they could. They did, and I have to give props to Disney. The way that their security handled it, they had no leaked footage. They did it right.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely smart the way that they
hall
did it.
Bigger than Hall H.
Because they made, unlike press was the only ones who had their phones. They made everyone else check their phones.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that is something for Comic-Con and these other things. I know that's big, but you got better security teams and better. Think about Disney did it right. That's why it didn't get leaked. Now, Suicide Squad came out. I don't think they were going to ever release that, but because it got leaked and they didn't want the crappy quality, because it's a movie they're so relying on to be good and they're proud of that trailer, they released it. And David Ayer, because David Ayer, remember, get pissed off, didn't want.
But did they say they were planning on releasing it like 8 weeks later or
maybe
something
8 weeks
like that?
later.
Yeah, it was
same thing with Deadpool.
But that was the trailer.
It was the trailer, right. So, but as far as Jungle Book, it's marketing, it's strategy, it's all that stuff, and it's about buzz.
Yeah, it's less about whether the product is actually finished and ready. It's like, when do we want you guys to see it?
Right.
Because even you bring up something like Batman v Superman, B versus S, or as I'm going to call it, Beavis. We haven't seen the movie. The movie's done. The movie is finished. I'm going to call it Beavis is done. Okay, it is ready. Beavis is ready to see, but they're not going to release it until March. They're going to move up from that same way that some of these trailers. But I think I can speak for all of us. When we laid our naked, steaming eyeballs upon that Jungle Book trailer, Favreau said it was 90% done. That thing was 100% done. It looked awesome. I can't wait for everybody else to see it so I can talk to you guys.
Yeah, going back to that, I can't remember if we told the story before or not, but going back to that D23 event, Kristian was just telling you that like the press was the only ones even allowed to bring in phones, and we couldn't have our phones out. Like we were not, like if they saw us with our phones out, they were throwing us out. They went over us like over and over again. By the way, it was not mostly pressing that thing. There was a small little fraction of a percentage of the people in that room were actually pressed. The vast majority of them were just D23 fans. But they told us, no pictures, keep your phones put away. Once the presentation starts, keep them put away, all this kind of stuff. No pictures, no pictures, no pictures. So Kristian and I don't think you had joined us yet in the room. Kristian and I go into the room, we sit down and we're talking and we're waiting for the thing to start. And in comes this one guy from the press. And I'm just going to assume he didn't
Foreign
know better.
press. It was
it
foreign
foreign
press?
press?
Yeah.
Comes in for the press, sits down in a chair in front of us, and I kid you not, pulls out a tripod, boom, sits down, a lens this big.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. It was like a lens.
I tried. I go. He must have gotten permission.
Yeah, like he pulls out a lens this big onto the
Right.
tripod, and he's sitting there just ready to go. And then the Kristian and I are like, what?
Yeah, I thought he got permission or something too, and because they ran over to him, like put it away, and he could play the. Oh no, I did not understand. Yeah.
Well, it was just kind of funny because the Disney rep kind of walks by, kind of looks over and does a double take, and they go, "What are you doing?" It's like, way to be inconspicuous. All right, sorry. What's next?
Verona A writes, my question is about why religious Christian movies have a huge difference between critic rating and normal viewer rating on Rotten Tomatoes. War Room, which has 90% viewer rating, has only 36% critic rating. Son of God has 73% user score and again only 21% critic score. God's Not Dead, while it was okay, has 78% user score and only 16% critic score. I know that a lot of the critic scores are genuine opinions of the movies, but I feel like at least some of those ratings are due to the fact that they're religious, especially if the critics are not religious. My question is, do you think some critics give low scores only because they're religious movies?
This question kind of brings up a hornet's nest that I've kind of been dwelling in a little bit for the past 48 hours. Yeah, I've had a lot of people emailing me asking me why we didn't do a review of War Room. Understandable question, considering it was the #1 film at the box office the other day. But we certainly don't review every film that comes along. The question is, with this big gap between critic scores and the viewer scores of these movies on Rotten Tomatoes, could it suggest that some critics, and I like the way you emphasize some, that some critics maybe just give it negative reviews because it's a religious film and they themselves are not religious? I think for the most part, the answer to that question is no. I think for the most part, film critics who see every kind of movie all the time, they watch 1,000 films a year, I think they walk in and try to give it as honest a score as they can. But we are also human beings. Film critics are human beings, which means just like anybody else, film critics are subject to the same, sometimes biases, presuppositions, whatever you want, or predispositions, I should say, that you would have. You know, I am a human being, and I come along with all human beings, faults and shortcomings. Kristian is a human being. I'm not sure what Mark is at this point.
I'm from Melmac.
I'm from Melmac. So I believe the direct answer to the primary question is, do I think some film critics give a negative review because they are not religious and it's a religious movie? I think it's impossible to say anything other than yes. I think there are probably some. However, let's go back to the first part of your question, which was noticing this big disparity between the critic rating and the audience rating. And while I do acknowledge, I think there's a little bit of bias that gets in there with some film critics, although I think they're the minority, I think the lion's share of bias is brought into these movies by the audience themselves. Now, I think this is true in just about any kind of a movie because we're all human beings, but I think it really comes to surface when you're talking about either political movies or you're talking about religious movies. Those are the two topics they always tell you should never talk about unless you want to, be done with your job. So apparently today is my last day because I'm going to address them both. That, when it comes to political movies and religious movies, that is where we as human beings really show that bias. So let's take a look, for example, at a really politically right-leaning film. Remember that documentary, 2012 documentary? It was called 2016 Obama's America. Incredibly right-leaning, conservative, anti-Obama movie, right? It had a critic score of 25%, but guess what the viewer score was? 78%. Why? Who's going to watch this big anti-Obama movie? It's people who are already anti-Obama. It is people who are already very right-leaning conservative. There's not a lot of card-carrying Democrats who are going to go into the theater and buy a ticket to watch 2016 Obama's America. Therefore, you had a lot of people going in there to watch it, to hear what they said. And this is the thing with religious and political movies. A lot of times we as human beings, this is all of us, we go in to see these types of movies not necessarily to see a great movie. We go into these types of movies to hear spoken back to us the things we already believe. That's part of our human nature. Now let's go on the other side of that. Let's take a Michael Moore film, Sicko. All right? Clearly, not a lot of card-carrying Republicans are buying movie tickets to go in to watch a Michael Moore documentary. It is going to be mostly populated, those movie theaters are going to be mostly populated with people who already are left-leaning in their politics and believe in a Democratic kind of sort of thing, and they're the ones going to go see that movie. Therefore, what's the odd when they go to see that movie and it's telling them all the stuff they already want to hear? They want to hear about how bad Bush is. They want to hear how bad the right wing is. Just like people going to see Obama want to hear how bad the left wing is. When they hear the stuff they want to hear, it's a great movie. And they give it a positive review. So I would suggest to you that when a movie like War Room comes out, who are the people going to see War Room? Most of the people, I think you would agree, most of the people who went to go see War Room are the people who are predisposed to hearing the message of War Room and just want to hear what it is they already believe. Like, Obama's America, like Sicko, like all that's just human nature. And so when they went into that theater and heard the things they wanted to hear, it gets a positive review from the audience at any rate. So while I agree that I think some bias does exist with some critics just giving the film a negative review because it's a religious film, I would suggest there's a lot more bias, and there's bias in and of itself is not a bad thing. Bias can be a terrible thing, but sometimes it's a perfectly natural thing. I think there's a lot more bias, a lot more the reason you see that discrepancy between the critic rating of some of these films and the viewer rating of some of these films is because some of these films are designed to be presented to an audience that already just agree with what it is the movie is trying to convey. And they are predisposed to enjoying those movies. Now, one of the dangerous things of these is that when you get a movie like Obama's America or Sicko or War Room, whatever, is because a lot of these types of films that, people just go to see it because it's just going to say back what they already believe. They're going to see these movies because they want to hear what they already believe, whether it's religious, anti-religious, left-wing, right-wing, whatever. What then happens is, and this is where it gets dangerous, that if you then say something negative about that movie that is saying the things that reflect the beliefs of that audience member, what we as human beings then do is we interpret that criticism of that movie as being a criticism of our beliefs. Nowhere is this more sadly represented online right now. Our friends over at Cinema Blend, great website, our friends over at Cinema Blend did a movie review of War Room. Now, honestly, it was a scathing review. They hated the movie. But as I read through that review, I never once saw anything that was disrespectful to the Christian faith. I never saw any kind of reference to anything other than the movie and the techniques in movie making in their review of that film. Yet, their comment section, last I checked, over 300 comments. That's a lot for a site to get that many. Was filled with angry people who were just lashing out at the film reviewer saying, you're anti-religious, you're anti-Christian, you hate Christians. And I then thoughtfully went through the review again. I saw none of that in the review. But he was criticizing a movie that was echoing the beliefs of those audience members, and therefore those audience members took that as an attack on their beliefs. And therefore, you get into a very dangerous game. And it's one of the reasons why we haven't reviewed War Room around here, other than the fact that we haven't even seen it. There's a couple of films. I haven't seen Walk in the Woods yet either. But, I have no problem with old people. And, this brings up another issue that kind of came up. And I'm sorry if I'm going long-winded about this, but I should at least get this out there. I had put up on my own Facebook page, say, look, despite the fact that I have an evangelical Christian background, that I went to Bible college, for heaven's sakes, that I consider myself something of a theologian, all that kind of stuff. I mentioned on my Facebook page when somebody was asking me on Facebook, why didn't I review War Room? Because I think Christian movies suck. I do. Always have. And guess what? I also think, you've heard me say 1,000 times, I think all video game movies suck. But nobody has ever once accused me of hating video games. I just said video game movies have sucked. That's it. I love video games. But even in Bible college, this is the funny thing. Even in Bible college, when I was there with all these dudes, friends of mine, destined to become ministers and preachers and stuff like that, we all hated Christian movies. They embarrassed us. We thought they were atrocious and awful. And as Christians, we found them humiliating. We thought they were so bad. And one of the things that we always, me and my friends Tran and Rodney and Nate and Jed, we'd always talk about this. We talk about, take another entertainment industry, music. Now, you may laugh at this, and that's totally fine. That's totally cool. If it's not for you, that's great. But I remember we would think in the late 80s, early 90s, there was some awesome Christian music. Some of the best musicians in the world were in the Christian music industry. In the Christian music industry, they understood, hey, you can make songs about religion and about faith, and that's all great, but you still have to have great musicianship. You still have to compose wonderful songs. You have to have them produced well. You have to put together a final package that is an experience to listen to, that is great and positive and all that kind of stuff. They understood that just because you were Christian music, you can't get away by just making it Christian and forgetting to make good music. And, so I used to love, all the bands of the era and stuff like that. We would listen to, a lot of different stuff, watch a lot of different music videos, follow a lot of guys' careers. But for some reason, in Bible college, we'd always talk about why doesn't the Christian movie industry understand the same principle that the Christian music industry did understand? And so we all hated Christian movies on that level alone. There have been great movies in the past that have Christian themes, where you're talking about Les Mis or Ben-Hur or Ten Commandments or things like that. Lots of great movies with Christian themes in them, but the Christian movie industry for me has never worked. I've always disliked them, and so I don't even bother watching them anymore. But that's just my personal experience. That's just my personal view and just my personal take. So when we don't review a film like War Room, when we don't review, I doubt we'll review 90 Minutes in Heaven just because I personally thought the trailer looked terrible. It's not us saying that we have a problem with religious films. Not at all. In so much that I don't have a problem with video games. I love video games, but I've hated the movies. It's just understanding the real human condition that we have, that if we did review it, what would be the point? If we watched it and gave it a negative review, we would just be hurting a lot of people's feelings. We'd be getting a lot of people angry at us. We'd be getting a lot of people throwing a lot of accusations at us that are just not based on anything. And then we would have to engage in these arguments and debates that are distracting us from the real job we're here to do, which is to talk about and celebrate the world of film. And so that's kind of an elongated, long answer. I'm acknowledging right now, feel totally free to jump in the comment section and talk about how long-winded I was in this answer, because I'm telling you right now I've been long-winded. But that's kind of my addressing this whole issue of War Room and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, do either of you guys have anything you want to add?
No. I love the fact that you and the boys were rocking out to Stryper at Bible college.
Dude, we were rocking out to Stryper. We were rocking out to Guardian. We were rocking out.
Can you give me those names again? Because I saw Stand By Me 2 when you were going by the names. I just started envisioning like a road.
Rodney, it was Jed, it was
Tran,
Akbar,
Jeff,
somebody else. I'll tell you a quick story too, just to talk about how like when you're a critic versus a fan, it can be very, very different. Early in Christian's career, there was a movie coming out called The Fifth Quarter, and it was about an inspirational Wake Forest football season. And I found out they're making a movie about a Wake Forest football. I get to watch Wake Forest on the big screen. This is going to be great. I went to Wake Forest. I'm a huge Demon Deacon supporter. The movie had Aiden Quinn in it, and it was based on a true story. And I told Kristian, and he's like, I never heard of that movie. I'm like, what? And the same thing with War Room. I never heard of it, which tells me that they probably are marketing it to a very specific group of people, most of those people who will probably love the movie. Now, I saw The Fifth Quarter, finally. It's not a good film. It's like a Hallmark movie. But me, Mark Ellis, watching it, I loved it because I was reliving this magical season where we beat Florida State and went to the Orange Bowl. But as a movie, it's not good at all. So my Rotten Tomatoes score as a critic would be very low, but as a fan, it'd be very, very high. So I have to separate those things in my head. I'm passionate about stuff too. Religion doesn't happen to be one of them. I do believe in the Force, but there's other things that anybody's passionate about that you are going to have blinders on, and that's okay. You should celebrate that.
When I go into these movies, and when I watch them as movies, and I know, even if I know that I'm going to get backlash, because sometimes, honestly, it's people are very passionate about it, as they should be, but it really is a lose-lose, because if you don't like the movie, you're gonna get the same thing that the website that you mentioned did. It was a cinema blend. And it's just going to happen, and people are and it means something to them. That's why they do well, and that's why people are going out, because they're passionate about it. And I just go in, and when I see the movies, I say I'm just judging it as a film, and then I don't look at the comment section because I know what's going to happen. So I just watch the movie, and I review it the same way I review any other movie that I see.
When we eviscerated, or at least when I eviscerated the Transporter Refueled, worst movie I've seen in years. It's just awful. Nobody, I'm happy to say I didn't get one email of anybody accusing me of hating British drivers. I mean, or French actresses. Nobody wrote to me complaints that you
I
just
drive
hate
an Audi and you're wrong.
I didn't get any of that. But look, once again, this whole issue comes down to the core thing of being a film fan. All film is subjective. And just because some idiot here on a web show is saying, I don't like that movie, that in no way means you shouldn't like it, or you should feel stupid, or you should feel bad if you do like it. That's something we should celebrate, that we have this type of diversity and taste and stuff like that in film. So anyway, that's a really long segment to try to address this issue that's kind of been bubbling for the last couple of days. I'm sure I did not handle it completely right, the way I just explained everything. But I hope it clarifies at least my position a little bit on that whole issue. And I'm sure you have yours, and it's every bit as valid as mine. But I just wanted to throw that out there. All right, folks, that will do it for this installment of Collider Movie Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, don't forget, lots of great films are playing out our friends over at AMC Theatres. Head on over to www.amctheatres.com for all of your theater, showtime, and, of course, your movie ticket information. Are you on Facebook? You should be following Collider on Facebook. And don't forget, Collider's got a great contest going on right now. You can get tickets to New York Comic Con, airfare there, your hotel, some spending money, passes to Comic Con, all that kind of stuff. Go to the Collider Facebook page or go to collider.com, which you should have bookmarked anyway, and check it out. Find all the details there.
Can we join that?
Yeah,
I'm going to find out if you can. As of right now, I do not have New York Comic Con pass, so I should find that out.
Congratulations to our winners, Mark and Kristian.
And of course, I want to thank the guy sitting at the table with me, sitting over here, ever the optimist, Mr. Mark Ellis. Mark, where can people find you online?
You can find me crying in 4 days. Until then, I'm actually going to be at the Syracuse Funny Bone this weekend. You can get tickets at markellislive.com, on Twitter at 5150Ellis. If you guys are into fantasy football, I'm going to tweet out a link. You can play me in fantasy football all season long. 5150Ellis.
You know, I only mock you to hide my own pain and my own shame because my team is actually the Buffalo Bills.
I thought you were a Pats guy.
Oh, no, I like the Pats. I'm a Pats fan. I'm a Steelers fan, but my team is the Bills. I just don't advertise that very much. That my team is the Bills.
Yep.
Anyway, sitting over here, Mr. Kristian Harloff. Kristian, where can people find you?
I'm Giants through and through, so sorry, Mark. I know even though we're not good, we're better than you. You can find me at Jedi Council. Make sure that you watch that today. Both myself, Mark, and John. We're going to be going over all of the Force Friday stuff, a bunch of the new canon stuff. Great stuff happening today on Collider Jedi Council. Hashtag Collider Jedi Council. Get some of your tweets out there. And follow me at Kristian Harloff on both Twitter and Instagram.
And, of course, our lovely host today, Miss Ashley Mova. Ashley, where can people find you?
You guys can find me not watching football on Twitter and on Instagram at Ashley Mova. Happy Thursday, guys.
And, of course, you can follow me on Facebook and on Twitter at John Campea. And check out my Kickstarter for my new novel, The Pride, coming out in a couple of months. Head on over to Kickstarter and just search for The Pride, and you can reserve your copy earlier and support the book. That'll do it for us, guys. Thanks so much for joining us for Collider Video. And until next time, bye-bye.